Hello there, folks. I can see people are starting to stream in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We were just getting to talk a bit about where we are. I think actually, folks, if you come in, would you want to tell us just where you're joining us from? And maybe, actually, let's do, how's the weather where you are right now? Because I'm based in Brussels. We've had beautiful weather for like a week, and it's about to get really rainy and really sad again. And I need some hope that spring actually exists. See, the weather's good in Berlin. That's nice. How is it in Lyon, Salome and Pierre Antoine?
It's okay, I think, today,
Pretty
actually.
good today.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, Lyon is a lovely place to be. I'm trying to get to Annecy later this summer. It's one of these. I grew up going there once a year, and it's one of these places I just love.
My parents live there
Yeah.
actually, so I'm
Oh,
I'm lucky to go on a regular basis, and yeah, it's
oh,
gorgeous.
nice. Yeah. So I went with my father works in children's animation, so the big animation film festival every year. I can see you're already annoyed at all the animators showing up and taking all the hotels and all of the restaurant reservations, Pierre Antoine. Let's see how we're doing. Oh, south of Texas, sunny and 75, which I have not lived in the US in a little while, but I think 75 is pretty warm. Okay. Folks from Vienna, Western Germany, sunny in London. That's almost as rare as sunny in Brussels, I guess. So Eric is winning so far. I think sun in Rome is a good time to be, especially at this time of year before it gets ridiculously warm. So, oh, goodness. Folks from Switzerland, San Francisco. I mean, we're getting quite a big, quite a big spread. Ah, someone in Liège was good. Though, unfortunately, I think Liège will be going along with me and becoming just terribly cloudy in about 24 hours and then just that normal Belgian rain. Oh. Maybe I should repeat it. I've asked everyone to cheer me up because it's about to get really cloudy in Belgium. So I'm just asking folks where they're from and if the weather is at all nice. Give people maybe 2 more minutes to stream in and we can get going. Ooh, Glasgow. Love Scotland. Delft. Very nice place. Folks from London. Oh, wow. It's a very I've been coming to Solid World for a while, and I remember the time where it was just everyone from Belgium and the UK. So it's really nice to see how broad things are getting here. Folks from different parts of the UK, still quite a representation here in Belgium. Folks from the Netherlands, Germany, across Europe, parts of the US. Really nice. Great to see everyone. Ooh, interior Alaska. That's the farthest so far. We got a new winner.
Mm.
Okay, let's give folks 1 more minute to drop in. We can get going. Folks from Oslo, Romania. Okay, okay. Right. For anyone coming in just now, I was asking everyone how the weather's doing and wherever they are. Because I am loving the weather in Brussels right now, but I am aware that it's going to get real sad real fast, and then it'll get very nice. Brussels is tricky that way. Like it lets you hope, and then it crushes your hope, and then it becomes way too hot. And that's I think the general pattern around here. All right, folks. 5:05 on my clock, 4:05 in the UK. I guess we can get started. First and foremost, I want to thank all of our panelists for coming around, especially Pierre-Antoine and Salome, who will be presenting in just a moment. Thank all of you for joining in from clearly around the world. I think the winner was Alaska so far for the farthest we've seen. So yeah, let's get going. First and foremost, no need to be screen grabbing or trying to like write down everything that's on every slide. We're going to be sharing all of this presentation along with a recording of all of the things that will be presented here through our ODI mailing list. So if you're not subscribed to that yet, I'm sure my colleague will be putting that up in the chat in a moment. Beyond that, I am absolutely delighted to welcome to my first Solid World as a presenter. Couldn't have started with better presenters. Pierre-Antoine Champine, W3C Principal Data Strategist, and Salomé Durand, a computer science undergraduate at Lumière Lyon 2. They're going to be talking to us a bit today about the SPOTY project, which they're working on, which is aimed at the cross-fertilization between fields in linguistics and knowledge engineering using, as often happens in linguistics, data triples and now solid, which brings them here. One thing, right after the presentation that Pierre-Antoine's about to launch into, we'll have a Q&A session. I'll be asking some questions, but we'll be opening them up to the chat. We're trying to have a lively discussion here, which is why we have Thomas and Carl and all these other colleagues here to answer a couple questions. So please don't hesitate, put those questions in the chat as they come up, as the presentation's going. We'll get them all together and we'll bring them up when the time comes. So with that, over to you, Pierre-Antoine and Salome, if you want to introduce yourself and get to the presentation.
Thank you, Roberto. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, wonderful.
Looks great.
So I'm Pierre-Antoine Champin. I currently work for W3C as a principal data strategist, as Roberto said, but this project is actually part of my previous life as an academic in the University of Lyon. And yeah, maybe Salome, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm still a student. I'm actually learning computer sciences at Lyon University, and I had the great opportunity to work with Pierre-Antoine Champin as an internship.
Thank you. And so, we are going to present SPOTY. I will go over the context of this project, explain where it came from, how we came to be interested in Solid, present the application, or should I say the prototype, and then we will focus on two particular features of the application, which is sharing data with other researchers and analyzing the data with SPARnatural. So SPOTY is a research project funded by ASLAN. ASLAN is a research federation created in Lyon a few years back with the aim of fostering interdisciplinary research between linguistics, didactics, and computer science. And SPOTY is one of the projects funded by ASLAN, coordinated by Alice Vitran, who's also here for the panel. For the linguistics side, and myself for the computer science side. And as Roberto said, the main goal of SPOTY was to try to cross-fertilize between the fields of linguistics and the field of knowledge engineering. And more specifically, the goal of developing this application was to see how a knowledge graph could help the researchers in linguistic typology in their work. So this is the kind of data that those researchers use. They usually capture it in spreadsheets, as you can see. And the objects that they're studying are sentences in different languages. And for each sentence, so each sentence is described by using a codified template in the spreadsheet. We have some information here. Can you see my mouse pointer? Yes, okay. So some information about the sentence itself, an identifier, the language of the sentence, transcription and a translation, a stimulus identifier, more on this later. And then the sentence is split into tokens, that is atomic parts. You can think of them as words, although the concept of word is not absolutely correct. So that's why they're called tokens. And for each token, we also have some information like a gloss, which is a rough translation of the word. of the token, sorry, and codes that represent concepts in two thesauri, one which is the morphosyntactic category of the token, and one which is the conceptual category of the token. So those codes, again, from thesauri created by the linguists themselves, represent roughly the syntax and the semantics of each token, or some of the tokens in the sentence. So that's basically what I just described. The stimulus, as I said, is interesting because for some of the sentences studied by the linguists, they refer to reference stimuli used to elicit the sentences in the speakers. So basically, for example, they're using a corpora of videos that were specially designed for studying how movement is expressed in different languages. And the interest of these stimuli is that they create a more stable reference by having several speakers in different languages or even in the same language describe exactly the same video. It makes it easier to compare how the same stimulus was expressed in different languages or by different speakers. And the kind of research questions that linguists are trying to respond is, so this is obviously an example, what is the most frequent morphosyntactic category used in Thai to convey the meaning of direction or path of a movement? And then further questions might be, how does this distribution of morphosyntactic categories compare with other languages from the same geographical region or the same family, or maybe even for all languages on Earth, can we identify regularities in how all humans speak about a special kind of movement? So again, to help linguists answer those questions, we started with a regular web application, okay, with the server-side coded in Python, the data stored in an RDF triple store, and then this application would generate HTML pages to explore this knowledge graph. And one component of the application that proved very valuable and very useful is SparNatural, which I will describe a little later. So, what's important to notice is that SparNatural is interacting directly with the triple store via the SPARQL endpoint protocol. So this is a screenshot of the application. Here you can see the counterpart in the knowledge graph of the Excel file that we saw earlier. So those Excel files are converted to RDF and uploaded into the triple store. And then they contain, as we saw, a number of sentences. If I click on one of those sentences, this is a description of a single sentence in the application. So it mimics the same structure as the spreadsheet in order to keep the linguists in a familiar environment, but it has some additional features. Like if I click here, I can see all the sentences in my knowledge graph in the same language. If I click here, I see all the sentences described using describing the same stimulus. And here the stimulus is repeated, so I can see the video that was used to describe, to elicit this sentence. SparNatural, as I said, was also very useful. Here we see how the data can be browsed, but in order to analyze this data and to take into account the benefit of having a knowledge graph, we use SparNatural, which is developed by the French company Sparna, founded by Thomas Francard, who will also be part of the panel. And Sparna describes SparNatural as an end-user-oriented knowledge graph explorer. It is an open source web-based interface that looks like that. Later on, I will give a demo and show you how users can interactively create this kind of diagrams, which represent the kind of queries that they want to ask on their knowledge graph. So let's zoom in a little bit. And this is actually the representation in SparNatural of the questions that I asked earlier. So we're looking for sentences in Thai. Those sentences have a token. This token has a any morphosyntactic category. So we are looking for all the possible morphosyntactic categories of tokens, but the token must have the semantic category that's under path. Okay, so again, we will see later on how this is done interactively. Under the hood, this becomes a Sparkle query that is used to query the knowledge graph and then again the results. So Carl Seifen, who's also here, was a PhD student, is now a doctor in linguistics, who used the application. So he was our main tester and main user for a long time. He used the application to study the data that he gathered for his PhD. And again, SparNatural was proved very useful in that. But when it came a moment to say, okay, this has been useful for Carl, it probably can be useful for other researchers in linguistics. How can we get them to use this application? We came into a problem, which was researchers in linguistics are very sensitive about keeping control over the kind of data that we have seen, the kind of data that they store in spreadsheets, because this data is it takes a lot of time and a lot of work to produce this kind of data. And it's useful to share them with colleagues, to study them. At the end of the day, that's used to publish scientific publication, which is the bread and butter of the researchers. And until they get the value out of this great amount of work to produce the data, until they get the value as scientific publication, they're very sensitive about oversharing it, because yeah, that's they have a lot to lose if the data is if the publications basically are done elsewhere. So they are willing to share the data. They are very conscious about the value of open science, but they are also willing to keep data, to keep control of the data. And that's where Solid was a perfect fit, because Solid, as most of you probably already know, is a new design for web application that emphasizes user control over the data. So the idea came to refactor this standard web application into a Solid application. So the architecture changes a little bit. Instead of having a centralized data server, the data is stored on Solid pods that remain under the control of the different users. The application becomes a fully client-side application. We used the React framework for building the application, and LDO, which is a Solid specific framework as well. And we wanted to keep SparNatural as part of the application. So on the plus side, we have this very nice and fine-grained control over the data, which remains with the users of the application. On the minus side, as I said, SparNatural is designed to interact with the data via the Sparkle protocol, which a SolidPod does not provide by default. So let's start by focusing on the plus side, and Salome will demonstrate how sharing the data with other people works in Spotty, and then I'll go back to solving this challenge with SparNatural. So Salome, over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to...
If I can stop the sharing.
Yeah.
Can you? Which is strange because I don't see the... Oh, there it is. Sorry. There you go.
Okay, so now I think you see my two windows, right? All right, so we'll start on the left on that screen, the white one. And I'm going to walk you through the sharing feature, as Pierre-Antoine just said, which is the part I worked on during my internship. So as you can see here, I am logged. I don't know if you can see with that. Yeah. As Salome Durand, okay, in the Spotty application. And you can see that I have no workspace yet, so I propose we create one. And as you can see, the workspace URL follows pattern. It's built from my web ID, so from a Solid pattern. And there you can just add any name you want for your workspace. So I propose today maybe Solid. And we can create a workspace easily like that. So it can take a bit of a moment. Okay, it's okay. When we turn home, you can see that now we have a workspace. But when we click, we can see that it's currently empty. You don't have any files in it. So I propose we can upload a file or even several files like that. So as just said, Pierre-Antoine, spreadsheet files, and the application is loaded the files. And when you click on the files, you can have access to all the sentence. And when you click the sentence description. So now, as I said before, I will walk you through the sharing feature. So as you can see, each file has a dedicated little icon here, representing a kind of an inbox with an outward arrow. It means that you can share this file. So I will just click on it. And there you can see that I have a list of contacts that I can choose, or I can manually enter any web ID directly if I want. So before that, you have to understand that the contacts I have here are retrieved from my Solid account, from my pod directly, thanks to the fourth node relation. Because these social connections exist really independently from the application, which is the core principle of Solid ecosystem. As Pierre-Antoine just said, your data and including your contacts are directly on your pod, and thanks to the Sproti application, which is Solid compatible, you can use directly the data that are on your pod on that application. So for the demo, I'll select Salome Bis, so it is another account, of course, and I'm going to confirm. Just before that, to explain what will happen and how it works under the hood. When I will click, the app will check whether the recipient, so here my contact, already has read permissions on the file. If it is the case, it's okay. But if not, I can of course grant them individual read access only for my contact, or I can decide to make the file completely public. And then the app will post finally the invitation to Salome Bis directly to the Solid inbox. And then we'll see a confirmation message. So I propose we do that now. So you see they're searching for permissions. That's what I explained earlier. That's the app checking if I have the right permissions. And here you can see that your sentence collection has been shared. The invitation, has been correctly sent to the receiver. So now I propose we go on the other account. As you can see, I am logged as Salome Bis, so this is the previous me. I can go in another workspace. Here, this is Poti. And you can see that I have access to an inbox just here. So for the moment, I don't have anything, but I think it's just a moment to load everything down. So I have already, as you can see, badge that just appeared, and it means that I have received a notification, and by clicking on it, I can see that I have indeed the invitation I just sent before from the other account, and you can see it because I have my web ID here from the other account, Salome Durand, and it is the file I just sent. So sorry. Well, I wish to import it, so I'm proposed to select it, and I will validate my choice. And here you can see that the import is in progress. I have a really low connection, so I propose just to reload the page, but normally it appears automatically. Oh yeah, and there you see that the file has been correctly imported, and you can have, of course, access to all the sentences that were previously in the file I just sent, and you have access to the sentences description, all the same. But I had like to note an important things. When you go in the URL, you can see that it is still Salomé. Wait a minute, Salomé Durand file, because as you see in the URL, it is still my web ID from the first account. And that means important things in the Solid ecosystem, because it represents the fact that the data is always read directly from the from the sender, Salomé Durand. And Salomé is just here on the right side, just hold the read access to that resource, but do not have any other permission on it, just read access. And the data itself is really not duplicated or not moved and not even really sent. It's just an invitation to read it from Salomé Durand's pod. So yeah, and it is also reflected in the UI if you want to see. For example, here you can see that I can share the first file, of course, because this is mine, or this is Salomé bis file. But if you can see the Thai imported, so the one I imported, I can't share it. I don't have the icon because I don't have any right on it. It's always Salomé Durand, so the first account's file. Well, I think it's all for me. I hope it was clear, and I can just stop the sharing.
Thank you. Share again. There we are. So let's now come back to analyzing this kind of data, either data that I created or data that was shared with me. So this is the architecture schema again, and as I pointed out earlier, we have a challenge here because SparNatural was not designed to interact with resources on the pod. It was designed to interact with the Spark endpoint. So we did contact Thomas Francard and his team at Sparna and started working together in order to find a solution to that, because we were motivated by the fact that SparNatural was quite successful in the Spotty application, that it could be successful also in other Solid-based application, and that there was value in enabling this kind of connection beyond Spotty itself. So the first idea was to leverage Communica, which is a project from the University of Ghent. Communica is a query engine which supports Sparkle, but also other query languages, and which is able to interact with a variety of sources, like any web resource, Sparkle endpoints, of course, and also solid pods. So that required some adaptation on the side of SparNatural. So the Thomas Francard and his team worked on that, ended up with something that was working somehow, but not really usable, unfortunately, because that was way too slow. And it's not really Communica's fault. The problem is that SparNatural is using Sparkle not just to respond to the query asked by the user, but also uses a number of queries for populating its own user interface. And those queries need to be really fast, really responsive. And this at least that didn't quite work with interrogating a pod with multiple resources in that pod. So we had to give up on this first option and try the plan B. And the plan B came from the fact that LDO, the framework that we're using for Solid, actually has a triple store, uses internally a triple store where it caches all the resources that it loads from the pod. So the second idea was to use Communica to interact not with the pod directly, but with this triple store directly into the browser. That also takes some time, especially because when we got the idea, there was some compatibility problem with Communica, but when this was fixed in Communica, we tried this second option, and it was better. But unfortunately, it was still not quite responsive enough. And again, Communica is not necessarily to blame on that, but this triple store has a very basic API that doesn't provide all the specific methods that Communica is able to use to optimize the queries. So for some reasons, that was still not good enough. So Plan C is actually what is currently deployed in the Solid application. The idea was to replace Communica with Oxygraph. Oxygraph is a Sparkle engine developed in Rust and available in the web application because it can also be compiled to WebAssembly. Now, WebAssembly works in a separate memory than the JavaScript code that makes the rest of the application, which means that in order to deploy this solution, we had to dump the whole triple store in JavaScript world into a separate triple store in the WebAssembly memory to be usable by Oxygraph. And as counterintuitive as it may seem, this solution was actually much faster in the end than everything else we had tested. So more specifically, the time to dump the triple store here is not insignificant. It can take a few seconds when you have many sentences, but that happens only once. And then after that, all the interaction of SparNatural with that store are actually pretty fast and make for a good user experience. So let me demonstrate how that works. So this is my my workspace with a number of files. So it takes some time for the application to load the file. The other views, well, okay, here they are. The other views populate incrementally. So here are all the languages represented in my workspace, and you could see the list grow when the sentence collections are loaded. SparNatural, on the other hand, needs everything to be loaded. So there can be a small delay here. And as you can see, I start with a number of proposals. So what is the kind of objects that I'm looking for? This is configured based on the content of the knowledge graph. So we are looking for sentences in a given language. This drop-down list is populated, as I was saying, by a small Sparkle query to the triple store, all the languages represented here. So let's see sentences in Thai. Those sentences must have a token. Here I have the choice between two relationships between sentence and token. I can look only at the first sentence the first token of each sentence, or any token. That's what I'm interested in. And this token, this token has additional condition. It must have a semantic category, again, either a direct category or any super category. That's what I'm interested in here. And here is the hierarchy of categories, so the thesaurus that I was mentioning earlier. I'm interested in anything on the path. And the token must also have a morphosyntactic category, so we'll look at the codes directly. Any code is of interest, and I will show the codes and the tokens. And I'm actually not interested in the sentences. So I'll hit play. This is a previous result from another query, and there we are. So here we have all the tokens in Thai and their morphosyntactic code. So RA means at position, like preposition, if you like, and HV means head verb. Okay, but okay, this is a very detailed response. What I'm more interested in is actually counting the number of tokens for each morphosyntactic category. And what we can see here is that we actually have only two morphosyntactic categories in our quite many sentences in Thai, and verbs are clearly the most widely used. I should have a pie chart here on the stats tab, but for some reason that doesn't work. That's why it says experimental here. Okay. We're already quite late on the schedule, so I'll stop the demo for now. And to sum it up, so we do believe that Solid is a very good fit for open science. It provides both the ability to share, including to make data public, but to keep the control of for the creators of this data. We think that SparNatural is also a very good fit for many Solid applications, RDF-based application in general, and Solid applications more specifically. The architecture presented here is definitely not the last thing that we can do. The goal was not to tell you that's how you should do things, but more give some experience of how we tried, how we failed, and the kind of counterintuitive ways that we found to make this work. But some improvements are definitely possible. This is open source. The project is hosted here. Those are all the people that have contributed to this project behind the coordinators, Alice and myself. And yeah, I guess and hope you have plenty of questions. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Pierre-Antoine and Salome, for that great presentation. Always a nail-biting thing to be doing live demos in the middle of a webinar, but very well done. Everything went perfectly. It's a great application. I'm so excited to see it. It's so nice to see a Solid application being used for something that's so precisely what Solid is for, right? The notion that I can share something with someone else, show them what I'm working on without ever relinquishing control of it, especially in a field where control of your data is such a sensitive topic. But openness is also something you want because you want that collaboration, you want that open science. It's just a really inspiring project. I know that I have a couple questions for you, but before I get to those, I'm going to welcome everyone in the chat to please put some questions into the chat if you have anything you'd like to ask Pierre-Antoine or Salome or the rest of our panel, who I'm going to introduce to you right now. So joining us, we have the other leader of the project, Alice Vitran, excuse me, professor of linguistics at the University of Lumière, Lyon, and in the CNRS DDL Research Center. Let me make sure I say that properly. We have Carl Steffen, also mentioned in the presentation, who's a research and teaching assistant in Aix-Marseille University and Laboratoire Parole et Langue in France. And Thomas Franka, senior knowledge graph consultant. Welcome all. And well, while we give the chat some time to write some questions, I have a few of my own. First, I guess I have two types of questions I want to ask you. First, some clarifications. One is, if I was using the application and I already had a sentence collection that I shared with someone, can I then revoke that? Because I know that's a big part of Solid, and I know that's something that's been a bit difficult in previous applications. And how would that revocation look on the screen of the person I've shared it to?
Salome, do you want to take that? Or
yeah, I can begin if you want. Yeah, of course you can revoke that. In your pod, you have the access right, to the permissions right to control that. So you will find the person you allowed to read your file, and you can just delete that person from your pod, or the permission that your person have to read the file.
Okay. How's that done? Go on.
Sorry, to complement. So that's in theory that's possible. One important caveat, though, is that you can currently not do that from inside the Solid application. You can do that from any other app that you use to manage your pod. That could be CPOS, that could be Penny, that could be Pod Pro, that offers some those generic features, such as changing the permissions on a given resource. But ideally, just like we provide a convenient way from the Solid app to share something, it would be useful to have the opposite functionality also inside the Solid app. So that's it is technically possible. It is not as smooth as we would like it to be at the moment. But that, in my opinion, that raises a broader question about how we build Solid application, because I don't think that realistically that's something that every application in Solid should redevelop for itself. So there is a tension between ease of use and duplicating work, and arguably the ease of use that you have by having it inside the application is to be balanced with the fact that the same functionality would look different in every app that you would be using. So I'm a bit, that's also why this was not for the moment a priority in the application, because I'm hoping that at some point someone will come up with a unified way of doing that that we could just reuse in Solid.
Yeah,
Sorry.
That's a good point, Björn. So it's one of these like key tensions we have in Solid, right? Because we're moving towards something that's so different from what the web is currently. Like right now, as a user of the web, you expect every application to be completely discrete, whereas Solid suggests a world in which all of your data is in the same pod, and you can have that kind of interoperability, and you can use bits from different applications to accomplish all of your goals at once. And it's your data on the web rather than you in a particular application that has your data. So that's definitely a very interesting question, something we can keep discussing in the CG and have a whole lot of thought about. And in that context, how do you see the future of Spotty, right? You just mentioned there's a roadmap going. Can we expect to see some updates and some more thought on how this goes?
So that's thanks for the question. That's actually a sensitive question. The project is now finished. The funding of the project has ended. So at the moment, the future of Spotty is quite uncertain. That's why I mentioned that, yeah, it's open source, it's out there for any people to reuse and possibly contribute to. But yeah, we're still thinking, trying to find ways to continue the work, fund the work, and continue it. But at the moment, unfortunately, we don't have any concrete plan for moving forward. Yep, and so that's also a cry for help.
I mean, this is a friendly audience. I think if anyone's going to be able to hop on and start helping and maybe have some way to get involved, I think this is a good group for that. And yeah, it's a really interesting project. I guess from my perspective, as someone who I tend to be more on the application side of Solid, the governance side, like data governance side of things, I have a user experience question for you, and I'm not sure how much of this was taken into account when the project was being created, but what really came through in your presentation was this notion of an evolving tool, like that linguists already have these spreadsheets, but they're not ideal for particular reasons. So we developed that into a web tool that can be more useful in certain ways, but now we reach a different problem where they're trying to share it, and we need yet another tool, and it goes beyond what the web can do now, so we go into Solid. My question to you is, because this is such a specific tool and it's in such a particular area where people actually use these things, how are you and the team thinking about balancing the ease of use? Well, actually, I should say, how are you balancing the new capabilities that came along with Solid and that came along with the Spotty project with the ease of use and trying to get it into a way that real linguists might already understand, know, and use, right? How far from the spreadsheet do you go before people get lost and just prefer the spreadsheet? And how quickly can you move them across?
I can take this unless maybe Carl or Alice you want to. I can start unless you want to start, but okay. So interestingly, the initial idea with a standard web application was that we would brainstorm with Alice, with Carl, with possibly other linguists, to try to see what kind of visualization they needed from the knowledge graph. And we started working on stuff like that, and the idea was that I would write the SPARQL queries and make the web views after discussing with them. And one day, after coming across SPARnatural a number of times, I just got the idea and said, okay, well, this would be nice. I can write the SPARQL queries, I can make the specific views, but let's try and plug this and see what happens. That as an advanced feature somehow, rather than anything else, because the idea was to have something much more controlled and much more tailored, right? And it was really a success story. I mean, I have to say, I was amazed how Carl appropriated the tool. To the point that one day we were discussing that, and Carl opens the secrets tab to show the SPARQL query and starts tweaking with the SPARQL query, because he at some points there's only so much that the UI can do for you, and he taught himself to tweak the SPARQL query. I don't think, Carl, that you feel comfortable in writing a SPARQL query from scratch right now. But so it was really great to see this kind of new use, which was not what we intended for the tool in the first place. And I have to say, I'm really a huge fan of SPARnatural for that, for the kind of flexibility it offers while remaining, I believe, accessible enough for people people who are from the application domain and not necessarily from the technical domain. Although I know that Alice wants us to write much more documentation on that, and I completely respect that. But I think that's a very sweet spot in terms of user experience. And again, yeah, that's why I believe it can be valuable for many other solid applications. And I don't know, again, maybe Thomas or Alice or Carl, you want to add to that?
Okay, thank you for inviting me to this panels. The only thing I will add is that because there was a question for us about was it easy for linguists and researchers to grab solid concept. So I would say the concept is easy to grab and seems useful for us. Then the application, the way to work with it, it's may take us a little bit more time. So that's why I just Pierre-Antoine say we need more information or paper saying how to do everything. But yeah, of course we are really sensitive to the fact that we may have our data not in the everywhere. We still have control on this data, and this is important for us, as it had been said already.
Okay, I think that was a question from Theo in the chat about how linguists are taking things in. And with that, let's maybe go into the chat, see what else people are asking. I have a question here. Although the application is around linguistic analysis, I imagine the architecture can be reshaped, an example, matching technical statements to similar ones, like fault descriptions, or other triple store queries. Is this documented in the open source? Do you have is the documentation extensive enough, Pierre-Antoine, that folks can grab it and move it in different directions, do you think? Or is that encouraged?
Well, as I said, the documentation could definitely be improved. I'm not sure. There are two ways to respond to that question. So the application itself is rather specific to linguistics and to the linguistic typology. More specifically, the spreadsheet template is rather generic. There is a spreadsheet template, and then there are the thesauri used for morphosyntactic categories and semantic categories, which can be decoupled. Of course, other kind of research data from other fields would need more changes to the application itself. And then there is SPARnatural. And as I said, and I see that Thomas has his hand raised. So SPARnatural, on the other hand, is completely agnostic to the domain. there is some configuration involved, but Thomas will talk about it better than I will.
Before I hand over to you, Thomas,
Yeah,
I just want to I just
go
want to
ahead.
quickly give credit to Rome808 who asked the question, just in case. Go on, Thomas.
So SparNatural can be reconfigured with a shackle specification file. So the shackle describing the structure of the knowledge graph that is being queried. I've answered in the chat with a link to the detailed documentation on how to do that, which actually brings me to another question. That is here in the prototype, the structure of the graph that is being queried is known in advance. So we know we're querying sentences and morphosyntactic categories and so on. And I was wondering whether in the solid world, this structure of the graph that is being queried can be advertised by the pods, so that the pods can say, hey, I contain sentences or I contain morphosyntactic categories, so that then we can discover dynamically the structure of the data that's being explored.
Okay. Well, I know that pod data discoverability is a very big topic within the community. It's something that people do. So to have a knowledge graph on top of the pod that will describe what is inside it is a big part of it. I'm not going to hazard to answer too much because I'm not a technical implementer within the Solid community group. But Thomas, if you're interested in this, I am more than happy to connect you to folks within the Solid community that'll have much better answers than I can give you here. But in short, I believe the answer to your question is yes. The pods are able to advertise or at least state what they have. Whether that's desirable in different applications is different, right? We don't want every pod to say I have a passport in me, because then they might. That kind of question. I have another question from Theo here, who asks, where were the pods hosted for this research? Was it an existing pod provider, and did you have a good experience in doing so? Theo's asked, yeah.
I can take this one. So yeah, at the moment we're relying on existing pod providers from the solidcommunity.net, as you've seen, was used a lot. So we relied on what the community is already providing, is the short answer. It was not without issues, because but that's an issue generally with Solid. We discovered that not all pod providers are completely interoperable. Well, and possibly that was a problem with the way the app was developed. But so Spotty works well on solidcommunity.net. It did not work that well on another provider. I don't remember which one.
I see.
The idea on the longer term would be to try and get some collaboration with some research institution. There is this organization in France called Humanum, which is for a research organization dedicated to digital humanities. They provide a lot of resources for digital humanities, sorry, a lot of digital resources for research in humanities. And if we manage to convince enough people to use Solid for open science and open research, and I think that this is a great audience for that, because again, those people are very concerned in the good sense about the control over their data. Then maybe we could convince Humanum to become a pod provider, and also that would probably give more trust in this kind of new kind of web applications to those researchers, because they know Humanum, they trust them, and so which would be maybe a little more reassuring that say, yeah, go to this solidcommunity.net thingy, which looks very geeky, and create an account over there, and then you can store your data. So yeah.
Makes very good sense, Pierre-Antoine. I'll say for myself at the ODI that we are looking into providing, and I should say we will be providing some Solid pods ourselves. So maybe that could be an option at first. And if you do start speaking to Humanum and you need to have a conversation about what it takes to provide these things, we at the ODI would be very happy to help you there, as well as make connections to everyone in the CG who are, experienced in setting up servers and preparing these solid pods. And I can't agree with you more. I'm coming from a research background a while ago, and I do think solid is something that would make a whole lot of sense in this field. Again, as shown by your project, and it's the underlying dynamics of it. I think linguists maybe are a bit more keen to use it because you're already using triples and you're already talking in RDF more than most other fields. But as a political scientist, at one point, I can tell you we have a whole bunches of data that would benefit immensely from the kind of organization that's been done here. With that, I think I'm going to be a bit aware of time and realize that we should probably start saying goodbye. Before I go around the panel and ask you to say like a quick parting note, I'm just going to try and remind the audience that we have a couple events coming up for the ODI if you enjoyed it. First, a huge thank you to our panelists here for this great one, but we're going to have another Solid World in May. First in April, then in May. The one in April, it will be happening during the Solid Symposium, just part of this big Solid week. We'll be organizing on the last week of April. We'll have a hackathon at the beginning. We'll have the symposium at the end. And I'll be coming to you live with some insights from the symposium in another Solid World. We'll have another Solid World on that'll be on May 1st during the symposium. We have all of the different booking links in the chat if you'd like to have a look at that. And before I say goodbye, does anyone on the panel have a quick thing you want to say goodbye to, shout out, or want people to take home with them at the end of this webinar?
I may just say a word that it was a really good experience to work with people from really, I would say, far domain, just like Pierre-Antoine. And it was really a nice experience that should be done again with different, different domain actually.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. And if no one else has anything, then I'm going to say a big goodbye from us here at the ODI. Big thank you to everyone on the panel.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.